Welcome back to the Division 2. You can see that there is a lot of specialization ammo in front of me. I have literally just run this same beginning part of Space Admin HQ 100 times. I'm incredibly tired. It was really tedious, but I wanted to do a test on this game. And it took 3.5 hours of just non-stop running in here on heroic difficulty, clearing the enemies, restarting the mission, coming back in, rinse and repeat 100 times. The reason I've done it is because sometimes, very rarely, but sometimes, you can literally start a mission on heroic and within the first section you can get an exotic drop. Pete's had it several times lately. I've had it a couple of times, probably since Warlords came out. So I wanted to put it to the test, and I wanted to see if it was actually possible to farm the first part of a mission in order to get exotics. So far, it's seeming not likely at all. Because I've done 100 runs, I've not seen a single red drop from this first part of the mission. When I originally started it, it was rifles as the targeted loot. I literally passed through the time where they did the targeted loot reset, and it went to marksman rifles. So I was initially going for the Merciless / Diamondback, then I was going for the Nemesis. From that sort of research and experiment, I've come to the conclusion that the loot actually needs completely overhauling, all over again, because Gear 2.0 sucks. My reasoning behind this is because out of the 100 runs, I got 2 named items, I had 1 triple god roll, remember this is all on heroic difficulty, and I had 2 gear set drops. Gear sets are working incredibly weird since Warlords released. The targeted loot isn't gear sets. I'm playing on heroic and I don't know if they should be involved in the normal missions that aren't targeted for gear sets. But it happens every now and then. But literally out of 100 runs, I had 2 gear set drops. I did have a few god rolls. I believe there was 1 double, 1 triple, and there were 5 or 6 single god rolls. But that was literally it. Out of 100 runs of this, you can see the amount of specialization ammo. And I believe there are 63 things in my inventory that are either in there to increase the stats in my library or to deconstruct for junk. Plus there are, if I remember correctly, there are about 25 mods or something like that. So I had around 80-90 sort of drops, and the amount that could have any benefit for someone running heroic are very minimal. Like stupidly minimal. When they were talking during State of the Game, they were talking about Gear 2.0. They led us to believe that the loot was going to be meaningful. That was their words. They said we now have meaningful loot. Loot is going to drop less, but it's going to mean more. And when you're going around looking at the gear, you will be excited to see it drop because it's going to have better attributes overall. Ever since playing Warlords, like throughout the whole experience, I've noticed that again, that was just part of the marketing for the expansion because it doesn't actually mean anything, and the initial excitement for getting loot run out in the first 2 or 3 days. It wasn't something that lasted in the game. It was there though, so they did get that part right. There was a little bit of excitement when it first came into the game. But literally, the more I play, the more I work out exactly how bad it is, because I've played through missions on story for doing the Westside League and the Polarity Switch Global Event challenges. I've played through normal difficulty as well, and let's just say at level 40, we know that the God Roll weapon damage on a piece of gear is 15%. When you're running story, you're lucky to get above like 3.5, maybe 4% at a push. You will very rarely get a good piece of gear. You can get god rolls, it is possible, but your chances are pretty much similar to running the raid and getting the Eagle Bearer. Like, it's a stupidly low chance playing on story and normal difficulty to get anything good. The reason I'm making this video and talking about this is because you have a lot of different difficulties. It goes story, normal, hard, challenging, heroic, legendary. They are difficulties you can get in main missions for the game. Legendary is only available across the 3 initial strongholds, being Roosevelt Island, Capitol Building, and District Union Arena. And I understand them only wanting a small amount of the player base to complete them strongholds on Legendary, which to me, again, isn't really fair because it's not a raid. They are literally just missions, but I do understand it's the hardest difficulty in the game. It should be tough. There shouldn't be a lot of the player base completing it. But as for Heroic, Challenging, and the others below, every single player should be able to complete them difficulties. And that includes Heroic. I personally believe everyone should have the ability to complete Heroic content. But for anyone in the game, whether you're a casual player, a hardcore player, whatever you want to call yourself on this game, there's only one way you can actually, you're able to do these missions, and that's to get a good build together. I've said this several times. I've showcased videos of a different playstyle, and I've given tips on how to make builds and stuff, but with that being said, and this has nothing to do with I've only got 2 hours a day to play, I can only play at the weekends. This is literally to do with the loot in the game, because whether you're putting 2 hours in per day or 12 like I do when I play this game, it's roughly around 12, sometimes 16 hours I put into this game in one day. Regardless of how much time you are spending on this game, you need to have stepping stones. So you need to be able to play story, get good rolls, push yourself up to normal, get better rolls, eventually pushing yourself all the way up to heroic, and then eventually getting into legendary. Then at legendary stage, if you don't have the skill level, then it's not going to be a difficulty for you, but you should be able to work your way up. And literally, I've seen better stuff dropping from challenging difficulty than I have from heroic. But literally, hard, normal, and story is pointless to run because the loot is so bad. And from 100 runs of this first area on this mission, I have barely seen anything good. And it's on the hardest difficulty possible. I know it's only the first part of the mission. Exotics can definitely drop from this though. And just the fact that I've barely had anything good. It's not just in general, the loot needs looking at again. I'm not saying it's in the worst state it's ever been. I'm not saying it's in the best state it's ever been. But they need to find a balance with the loot because it's supposed to be meaningful, as they stated. Yet it's currently working the complete opposite. It doesn't mean a thing. I know there's been damage glitches and stuff like that, so people have these incredible builds already because they literally sat there at a turret that's mounted on, let's say, solar farm control point, and they sat there for half an hour, run off, did legendary missions, got a big horn, blah blah blah. They did whatever. But for those people that weren't willing to do the damage glitch, for those players that are new to the game ever since the damage glitches have disappeared, it's not fair because it's going to take them hundreds and hundreds of hours to be able to get anything good going to do the higher difficulties. The reason I was able to get into heroic so fast is because I've always had a team to play this game with. Solo players, they've always been shit on by these devs. I've always had friends to fall back on if I'm performing bad on the day, then they've always got my back. Vice versa, if they're performing bad, I've got their back. But there's a group of us that play this game so we can help each other get through the missions and we can force ourselves up to heroic and then start getting better drops eventually. And it got to the point where we were running legendary District Union Arena. But for people that are playing by themselves, and also for some other groups, that is going to take you hundreds and hundreds of hours, because it did us. So if you have 2 hours per day, you've just got the weekend, you've just got night times, you're pretty much fucked. There's no other way to put it. I really, really do think the developers need to take the loot and have another look at it, because it's always seeming to be a problem in these looter shooters. The loot just doesn't seem to be good enough to the point where people are actually interested. The best example I can give is I have a bighorn. I have never ever used it because I tested it in the shooting range, and I can actually do better by running a separate AR and rifle than running the bighorn. The bighorn is such a weak exotic, and I mean the same goes for pretty much all exotics. They're all complete trash now. But that's going to do it for the video. It's probably going to be 10 minutes, but this is something I wanted to talk about. It's just a topic that's always bugged me because developers just say this sort of stuff all the time, and it really, really frustrates me. They say that you're going to love finding loot when they've overhauled it, and it's the complete opposite. It's not fun. It's fun for like the first 24 hours or sometimes 3 days worth of gameplay, and then it's just back to square one, like, oh, do I really need all of this? Like, there are several missions I run each day that I simply say to everyone that I'm playing with, because if we run a mission 5 times, we go through it and I'm constantly saying, oh, there's so much loot around this area. They're like, well, you should pick it all up. And I'm like, no, because I have like 1.6 million credits. I'm full up on all materials. There is literally nothing for me to do. I would literally just be deconstructing it for junk and receiving nothing for it. So I might as well just leave it on the ground and let the RNG gods just take it back up. Do whatever. But I'm going to leave the video there. Let me know your thoughts and stuff in the comments. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.